Welcome to our WBZ Climate Watch Earth Week special. I'm meteorologist Eric Fisher. Our planet is rapidly changing, and there's no better time than right now to act. And that's why WBZ is bringing you stories focusing on our evolving environment here in Massachusetts and all the way to Iceland.
And here in Iceland, there are stories linking this island country back to us in New England.
I'm tracking beavers in the woods of Massachusetts, the key role nature's engineers are playing in the fight against climate change.
We're lakeside in Marlborough building a cleaner community. We're joining dozens of volunteers to clean up unwanted trash on this shore.
And I'll head to Cape Cod, where the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution is taking plastic pollution head on, working to create a straw alternative that breaks down even faster than paper. All that and more on this WBZ Climate Watch Earth Week special.
Presented by Safety Insurance. We'll help you manage life's storms.
Well, spring is in the air. Flowers are blooming again, the trees are growing back their leaves, and spring and summer, the beauty here in New England is truly something to cherish. But it may not always be that way. Things are changing. And some of that change begins all the way across the ocean in Iceland, where WBZ's Jacob Wyckoff went looking for answers.
Here in Iceland, behind me is one of Iceland's largest glaciers. It's a country that is known for its beautiful scenery, its amazing waterfalls, volatile volcanoes, and hundreds of glaciers. But it's also at a serious risk for our changing climate. Glaciers are collapsing at an alarming rate, and what's happening here is having a direct impact to us in New England. There may be no greater sight synonymous with Iceland than the shining ice of its many glaciers. Each glacier like a time capsule telling a climate story from thousands of years ago. But now, more importantly, they give a glimpse into our future.
We see crevasses opening up, we see the ice melting down, we see the rockfall happening when it's like a really warm day.
Bart Vagity is a guide for some of the glaciers on Iceland's south coast. I met him on Sólheimajökull, one of Iceland's most popular glaciers. What is the reality for a glacier like this? Like, is it going to be gone in 100 years?
The last predictions I've read are that if the climate is going to warm up by 2.7 degrees by the end of the century, we're going to lose about 8 kilometers of ice on this glacier.
That means over half of this glacier would melt away. But that's just the beginning. Sólheimajökull has lost 2 kilometers of ice in the last 130 years, but 25% of that loss happened in the last 15 years. It's now melting at a rate of over 40 meters per year.
Overall, we are seeing similar changes as in Europe and many other glacier areas around the world.
Thomas Johannesson is a geophysicist at the Icelandic Meteorological Office. The IMO is like the United States NOAA, in charge of everything from observing volcanoes and forecasting weather to researching climate change and measuring Icelandic glaciers.
In the long run, glaciers in Iceland are not going to survive this warmer climate. If all our glaciers were to melt, it would raise sea level by about a centimeter.
1 centimeter doesn't sound like much. It's less than a half inch, just a drop in the bucket in a big ocean. But if all the Icelandic glaciers were to melt, that means the ice shelves and glaciers on Greenland and Antarctica were also melting. If those melt, we'll add another 25 to 30 feet to our sea levels.
It's going to be a very different future without the glaciers.
Guðfinna Aðalgeirsdóttir is a professor and researcher at the University of Iceland. Have we reached a point where adaptation now takes precedent because we haven't mitigated enough?
That's a very good question. I can't really answer that. All I can tell is that the glaciers are melting and the sea level is rising. But I think there is never going to be too late.
Perhaps not too late for us, but too late for some Icelandic glaciers.
Iceland held a memorial today for the country's first glacier lost to climate change.
In 2019, a team from Rice University held a symbolic funeral for Oak, hoping to draw attention to these melting glaciers. A plaque was placed in the now iceless ground, written in Icelandic and English, a letter to the future. It reads in part, "In the next 200 years, all our glaciers are expected to follow the same path. This monument is to acknowledge that we know what is happening and what needs to be done. Only you know if we did it. Back on Solheimajokul, do you think there is a future of Iceland that is ice-free?
That's a very good question. It really depends. We see a lot of glaciers are going to melt. It really depends on how much we can actually do to keep the climate warming down.
It's hard to picture an ice-free Iceland, but that's exactly the path we're on, and we hope we can reverse course before it becomes too late. Here at Reykjavik Harbor, there's a movement underway to re-envision the fishing industry to make it more sustainable and environmentally friendly. And what's being done here is inspiring other collaborations back in New England. Harnessing the wonders of the ocean along the docks of Portland, Maine. This building on Commercial Street holds the key ingredients to powering the blue economy. Inside is the New England Ocean Cluster. It was spawned by Patrick and Janine Arnold from a similar project in Iceland.
We found at the Iceland Ocean Cluster something new, something novel, an energy where people were sharing principles and values in business.
The Ocean Cluster brings people with common goals together to spark innovation.
It must be profitable, must be environmentally sustainable, must be culturally inclusive of the workforce local to a resource. When we saw that playing out in a culture in a private sector setting, we knew it was something special.
And these collaborative efforts have created a wave of productivity in Portland. This space, known as the Hoos, is generating new jobs, minimizing ocean waste, and hopefully building a better sustainable future.
This is ocean plastics turned into very high quality polarized sunglasses. And James here from Opolis Optics has done it now with ski goggles as well.
Katie Weiler owns a company called Viable Gear. She's using seaweed to make twine.
This is a 99.5% seaweed-based plastic replacement.
Another skyrocketing company called Marin is using glycoprotein byproduct of lobster processing and turning it into a game-changing skin cream.
I don't think lobster and skincare have ever really been used in the same sentence, so it was a mix of science and serendipity.
Patrick Breeding founded Marin along with his partner Amber.
We have a purified jar of glycoprotein here that is ready to go to the micro lab.
She was suffering from debilitating eczema when they were biomedical engineering students at the University of Maine, and the regenerative abilities of lobsters provided a light bulb moment.
Dry, damaged, itchy skin all over her body, particularly on her face. So I, as her partner, watched her, hide behind hats, scarves, and hoodies. And not only was it a physical issue, it was really deeply psychological. So after some lab research, we saw that, okay, in the same way the protein is helping do this in the lobster, it is repairing these skin cells. It's resynthesizing these new elements of the skin barrier. It's retaining moisture where otherwise moisture would be lost and skin dryness would be created.
The results were stunning.
Within 2 days, it started to dramatically improve, and within 2 weeks, it was like she had never had it before. It changed her life, and so we wanted to launch Marin to help others.
Marin has a partnership with Luke's Restaurant in Portland to source their lobster glycoprotein.
Their goal is to make 100% utilization of everything going through their facility.
One of the many partnerships sparked by the New England Ocean Cluster Incubator. And while Portland has been ideal, Patrick is open to expansion if it fits the model of climate responsibility, sustainability, and profitability.
It's more about the people and their proximity to each other and to that water. If we're really talking about mitigating human contribution to climate change, if we're really talking about shifting consumption, then we're running out of time.
It's a privilege being able to enjoy beautiful sights like this all over Iceland, and the work to save them is just beginning. We have much more to come. Coming up after the break, we head back to the States.
That's right, Jacob. Now, our WBZ Climate Watch Earth Week special is just beginning. Coming up next, meteorologist Jason Michael takes us into the forest to investigate a beaver dam. Now, how these little critters, who are often deemed a nuisance, are actually helping to battle climate change.
WBZ's Climate Watch is brought to you by Safety Insurance. We'll help you manage life's storms.
Welcome back to our WBZ Climate Watch Earth Week special. Now, they're one of the most commonly found pieces of debris in our oceans and on our beaches, plastic straws. And a lot of people are not really big fans of the alternatives so far. But at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, they're working on a better replacement that may also be a lot better for the planet.
This material right here, this is the fastest degrading plastic we've ever measured in our lab, and we've measured hundreds of materials.
Associate scientist Colin Ward is on the hunt for a straw that can hold up to your cold brew but disappear into your compost bin afterward. You almost want a delayed reaction.
Exactly. Yeah, you want it to stand up to the conditions that it's used in, but then if it gets leaked into nature or if it goes into a compost system, it can't withstand those conditions.
A typical plastic straw will linger in the environment for decades. Even when it does break down, it splinters into long-lasting and harmful microplastics. Instead, his team is identifying safer plant-based materials.
The plastic that we've been developing, it's actually made from trees, whereas this polypropylene straw, this is made from fossil fuels.
And while that's a welcome change, Ward has found that the best way to break their plastics down is by inviting nature to attack them using a long-standing technique.
We've really embraced this idea that you can manipulate how long a plastic article will last in the environment, not by switching the type of plastic you use, but by switching sort of the shape of the plastic.
By injecting gas bubbles, the same way styrofoam is made, and increasing surface area of takeaway containers and straws, microbes in the water attach themselves and break waste down more efficiently. You can't just take a bunch of straws and put them in a pail of water. That's not the real environment. This is the real environment, the ocean. And to accomplish that, they're taking Vineyard Sound, pumping it up the hill into their research facility.
This is the Environmental Systems Lab. This is what houses all of the aquaria where we do our experiments.
Candidates of different materials and sizes are tested for months to see how they hold up.
It flows into each one of these boxes, which holds hundreds of samples.
Ward compares how quickly they break down. In general, the process goes faster in fresh water versus salt, warmer water versus cold, and by creating a surface that nature can most easily get to work on. I think it's all fascinating because everything you're describing is the same as our bodies.
Yeah, oh, exactly. I mean, it's the same concept. It's our bodies, the microbes in our stomachs, for instance, breaking down, the complex food we eat. And of course, these plastics we're working with are made from plants, just like the plants we can eat as well.
Woods Hole is working with the materials company Eastman. Some promising products have already hit the market, with others in the pipeline.
National demand for straw and the global demand is only rising. It's a problem we want to get ahead of because it's only going to get worse.
And because plastic waste is so widespread in the oceans, and it's also a big contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, scientists say it's extremely important to find sustainable replacements for those materials. They're small but mighty creatures. Beavers are often given a bad rap, given the destructive way they build their homes and flood out roads. But as meteorologist Jason Michael shows us, the way they build their beaver dams and habitats may actually be building a better climate.
One of nature's stunning sights, a waterfall pouring over a dam created by nature's engineers, beavers.
They're really what's seen as a keystone species because of the way they create these wetland systems.
We're on a walk in the woods of Stowe with the Department of Conservation and Recreation's David Wattles.
All these bowls were basically carved out or deposited by glaciers.
Wattles is quick to point out the beauty of the forest and its many creatures.
In the winter, they'll take this whole stem, they'll drag it across the dam, and then they'll bury it in the mud.
And it's all thanks to the beavers.
By having these different types of wetlands in a wetland system, it creates habitat for a whole suite of wildlife species. So our amphibians, our reptiles, our turtles, birds, different mammals, all will use these beaver wetlands.
And this isn't just a great environment for wildlife. Wetlands are working to help the climate, sequestering carbon by absorbing and storing the greenhouse gas. The areas can also act as a water filter. With the water flow slowed by the dam, rainwater runoff is trapped more easily, and sediment can be trapped and collected at the bottom. Beaver environments can also keep wildfires at bay. That's why Waddle says the animals are being brought out west.
they're actually being reintroduced into those areas. And it's really because of the creation of wetlands that they do. They're creating wetland habitat in those arid environments that is making them more resilient to climate change and actually completely altering the ecosystem.
The beaver population was nearly wiped out by early American colonists, heavily trapped and killed by fur traders. A history laid out in the book, Beaverland.
You know, water is really going to be the story of our century. So all the problems that we are facing with climate change, drought and fire and flooding, all are about water.
The book was written by Holy Cross College professor Layla Phillip, and she stresses beavers can play an important role in our battle against climate change.
And we need to really value them and think about them as a key tool for fighting climate change. And it's not just about managing water, it's also biodiversity.
They're really an incredible animal from that standpoint, and really kind of unique in nature.
Unique and working hard to help save the planet.
And Eric, despite many feeling like the beavers are a nuisance, they are actually nature's engineers, so they need to be protected. Cheer it on because they're doing the right things.
So even if they flood out a few roads, we have to keep our patience with them.
Even if they flood some roads.
All right, we'll do our best anyway. Well, coming up next on our WBZ Climate Watch Earth Week special, we're going to take a look at some of the writings from a 19th century naturalist, how Henry David Thoreau's observations may give us some clues about climate change at Walden Pond. In studying climate change, a 19th century naturalist may offer up some interesting observations. WBZ's Jacob Wyckoff shows us how Concord's Henry David Thoreau is helping scientists uncover new evidence at Walden Pond.
Swimming, kayaking, even field trips are all common at Walden Pond nowadays. But a walk around Walden Pond is a walk through history. Something Richard Primack is using to his advantage.
Thoreau was a person who was just full of excitement and joy.
A professor of plant ecology at Boston University, Primack is part of a team of researchers studying climate change in Massachusetts. One of their most valuable pieces of data is Thoreau's book, Walden.
Thoreau made these very detailed observations, libraries of his observations on flowering time, leafing out, bird arrival time, ice out times in Walden Pond. And so these scattered tables of observations is really what the basis is for building on our own set of observations.
As a naturalist, Thoreau's observations of flora and fauna were compulsive, spending hours in a cabin like this jotting down 1,000 words each day on what he saw.
Because this is really the oldest data set that we know in the United States, the oldest sort of continuous running data set of observations of the timing of events in the spring.
These springtime biomarkers paint a clear picture in New England. Winters are shorter and spring is coming earlier.
Climate change is affecting Concord, Massachusetts. Wildflowers are flowering about 10 days earlier. Trees are leafing out about 14 days earlier. So we find that trees are somewhat more responsive than wildflowers.
Spring is Massachusetts' slowest changing season, about 1.7 degrees Fahrenheit over the last 50 years. Spring's early arrival time may be throwing off the synchronicity of the ecosystem. Perhaps most concerning isn't what we see, but rather what we don't.
When we started to look at flowering times of the plants, we kept encountering wildflower species that we couldn't find or that were extremely rare. So for example, fringed orchids or ladies' tresses orchids. So we kept finding wildflowers that were supposed to be common and that Thoreau had observed the flowering time of, and we couldn't find them.
Primack's team came to the conclusion that about 27% of all wildflower species from Thoreau's time in Concord are completely gone. Another 30% had declined in abundance.
When we came out with these results, people were a little bit skeptical.
Skeptical perhaps, but further data has proven Primack's theories.
Since we published our study, which was first discovered in Concord using the records of Thoreau, that people have found the same result elsewhere in New England and elsewhere in the Northeast United States.
I know Thoreau is revered in literature circles. Should he be revered in scientific circles as well?
He should be. In Thoreau's time and in the decades after his life, people criticized Thoreau. They said he is not a good scientist. We now know is completely wrong, that Thoreau was in fact a very accurate scientist.
At Walden Pond,
Meteorologist Jacob Wyckoff, WBZ News.
It's amazing how observant people were even hundreds of years ago, and those clues are certainly very helpful for all of us trying to do more research now. Well, coming up next on our WBZ Climate Watch Earth Week special, meteorologists Lexi O'Connor and Alyssa Andrews pitch in to help clean up the planet.
WBZ's Climate Watch is brought to you by Safety Insurance. We'll help you manage life's storms.
One of the most successful Earth Week initiatives have been organized cleanups where trash tends to pile up. Our most popular outdoor spots are beaches and our parks. Now, meteorologists Lexi O'Connor and Alyssa Andrews went out to Marlborough to help make a lakeside there pristine.
Spring can be one of the most beautiful times of the year here in New England. But unfortunately, before things totally green up, early in the spring, we can usually see the leftover trash from winter, things discarded on the sides of the roads and in our parks. It is vitally important that we all do our part to try and keep Massachusetts clean. Today, we are gearing up with an organization in Marlborough that is doing just that. Mayor, tell us about why you came out today and are a part of this.
Yeah, so it's a great event with Keep Massachusetts Beautiful. We're coming down here and cleaning up the Grove. It's a utilized park and trail. Every year we have Project Clean Sweep, and it's our 20th year. But if you're really entitled to want to help clean up Marlborough, you can always come down to DPW and get your trash bag and your gloves and help keep Marlborough clean.
And just, do you think that other cities and towns should be doing this too, or do you like to see it?
Absolutely. With the celebration of Earth Day, I think every community should take pride in ownership in keeping their city and town clean.
Neil, tell us a little bit about this organization and about how many events like this do you do every year?
Sure. So Keep Massachusetts Beautiful is a statewide nonprofit, kind of the umbrella organization to around 40 local chapters across the state. So that's really been the mission of Keep Massachusetts Beautiful since 2014 is taking action to make Massachusetts a cleaner, greener place to live, work, and play. Keep your trash in your car. There's no need to throw it out the window. So that's really the biggest, easiest solution to the litter problem is don't litter in the first place. And our ultimate goal is to put ourselves out of business.
Last year alone, Keep Massachusetts Beautiful estimates that they removed 150 tons of trash from parks and communities. And that's thanks to companies like BWT Pharma and Biotech and their amazing employee volunteers.
It's just a beautiful spring day. It's nice to be out, getting that vitamin D, cleaning up the planet, making the planet beautiful, and it's just a good day to be out here.
Litter is a huge problem in the state of Massachusetts, and it's important to us that we can come out here and clean up our local community. From BWT, we have roughly 15 to 20 people here, all very hardworking volunteers, so it's great that everyone came out.
If you look at any roadside in Massachusetts, it's not a pretty sight, but the thing I like to stress is that, there are so many daunting environmental challenges, whether it's climate change, PFAS in the drinking water. Litter is a very easily solvable problem. A, don't litter in the first place, teach your kids not to litter, and then B, take action and clean up your own street, and if everybody did that, the state would be a more beautiful place.
It's so great seeing the community getting out, volunteering for things like this. And we should point out, these events are happening all the time. It's not just on Earth Day.
Yeah, and just about every local community has a cleanup event going on in the spring or the summer, and it is easy to get involved. In fact, we have a full list on our website, WBZ.com.
Well, know what you can do if you can't find one, you can just organize your own, because we are so lucky here to have so many great outdoor destinations, and each of us can do our part to help keep them clean.
And as a newbie here, there's so many things to explore. We have beautiful natural resources, but we first must continue to protect them from the coastlines to the mountaintops.
Yeah, and we're committed to keeping you safe here at WBZ. I recently had the chance to talk to Governor Healy in her first ever conversation with a meteorologist on climate change. It was a wide-ranging interview talking about mitigation and adaptation of our future climate, and I can't wait to bring you that interview in full next month.
It's an important conversation. Nice work. Great work, everybody, and thank you for watching our Earth Week special. Up next, what are we looking forward to? We're hoping that we all have a safe and happy summer.